what does your gut say about Tush Push at the end of the day?
I think something gets through. I think they want to get rid of it. I think that I think something gets through, and I'm with you. I hate the optics of it. I hate like one team being really good at something and someone being penalized for it. I think that's always horse crap, you know. And I think that's what this is in a lot of cases, or for a lot of teams. I'm not saying all the teams are thinking this way, but I think for a lot of the teams, it's like, well, Philly's, well, Philly's been getting away with this for so long. Like, let's get rid of it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they're so good at it, they don't even need to push them half the time. So, like, this might not have the effect that you think it's going to have. Like, this actually, I mean, like, if I think they can do it, I think Philly can do what they've been doing with that quarterback and that offensive line without actually putting hands on Jalen Hurts and physically pushing him,
Right. I mean, is there a world where it doesn't necessarily matter, where you can, I guess, not push the ball carrier directly, but use those other guys in that flanking position to do something very similar to that and to just manipulate the rules in some way? And then,
I mean, I don't know. You heard the Jim Harbaugh scenario, right? Which was funny.
No, what is that?
What's stopping me with this rule? What's stopping me from lining up two guys behind my guards and having them push my guards?
Right.
And I think the Mike Vrabel one was, well, what if we push him behind? What if he takes a snap and then he runs behind the guard and we push the quarterback behind the guard? So there's ways around, like the language that they wrote. And I think that was part of the problem too. The language, the way it was written, and what the Packers submitted. Like, I think part of the issue is it's too finite. You know what I mean? It's too much about one play, which again, I think sort of shows in a lot of people's minds that this is targeting the Eagles,
And then what? Do we have a rule where these officials have to make a judgment call in real time?
I think they go, well, so this was actually an interesting one. So like somebody said to me, like the pushing and pulling, like you take it out, right? You just say no pushing, no pulling. I thought this idea, which I hadn't heard until last week, was really interesting. Give the official the power to whistle the play dead. So there's no penalty. But the minute the quarterback is getting pushed, you whistle it dead. Like forward progress almost.
Okay. See, what's the problem in just letting it go? Because here's the thing.
So what they would tell you is, and this is like the super litigious NFL, right? What they would tell you, what Dr. Alan Sills, our chief medical officer, would tell you is that it hasn't happened yet. We haven't had any injuries yet. Because in that room back in March, the Eagles stood up and said, like, well, I think it was Howie that stood up and said, like, well, if there's injury data, show me the injury data. And there's none, right? There's no injury data on it. So, what Sills said to the room was, it hasn't happened yet, but based on the posture, when there is an injury, it's going to be catastrophic. And so, like in that case, we're projecting, and I'm all for anything that's about player health and safety and everything else. But I haven't heard that argument much from teams. Like, it's like the league is arguing that, and then the other teams are like, well, it's a rugby play. This isn't rugby, So like, it's sort of like you have the league arguing one thing, you have these other teams arguing this other thing, and it's like that only bolsters the idea that this is just anti-Eagles, right? Like if you have 2 different entities just arguing something, like kind of like making up something, it's not like there's one problem with it. It's like you're coming up with separate problems to cover the fact that this maybe is just about the Eagles the whole time.
And with Dr. Sills, I mean, whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I can understand like the idea of the posture, like that your head may be down, like if you're ducking your head down and like you're bending your back a certain way like that. I get it, and I wouldn't argue with the doctor on that sort of stuff, but it is interesting that the league's argument is one thing. And again, like, I'm sure they're worried about a lawsuit, like where if something catastrophic did happen, well, then this having been on the table and not being voted through would actually probably help the legal case of somebody getting injured. You know what I mean?
I
I don't know.
guess, but like, oh, okay. So why don't we then?
And then
Why don't
I think the teams are worried about the football part of it, which is like, again, does this just all come back to this is just about the Eagles? You know what I mean?
why then don't we ban passes over the middle?
Right.
Right. I
Right.
mean, I have a lot of injury data that shows that that's bad.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
I
at
don't.
some point, it's just football, right? Like, which is like
That's what I'm saying.
which is where the heart of the argument is with this. Like, where it's like, this is, I mean, okay, like you don't want your quarterback to get hurt. Don't teach him to duck his head in that situation. You know, teach him to keep his head up, and that's it. I don't know. I mean, it's all of it is like it's just it feels like we've taken something that is relatively simple and I don't think that big a deal in like the day to day of the NFL and turned it into this massive thing to the point where like I feel like that like owners meeting there's so much going on at the owners meetings and everything else like that owners meeting became like engulfed by it. And now I think we're having a second meeting here in the spring and and now is this going to be engulfed by it? It's kind of crazy.
We I don't know, man. It's just like anything else in life, right? Where if you just let it be, it will eventually disappear on its own. The
Yeah.
Eagles have, at best, another 2 or 3, maybe 2 years with that offensive line
Yeah.
comprised the way that it is. And there's going to be some point in Jalen Hurts' life, especially after he's won a Super Bowl, where he's probably going to go upstairs and say, I ain't doing this anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it will go away on its own
Yeah.
if they just let it be. And every other team sucks at this except for the Bills. So just let it die a natural death, because what's going to happen is if you over legislate this, then there's going to be something else that comes up, and there's going to be something else that comes up, and there's going to be
Yeah.
something else that comes up. And then you're going to have to go back and that's going to be the
And it's the
precedent
can of
for,
worms argument. Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
can of
like,
worms argument. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know.
once you start with this, it's like, okay, like, well, like now the next time a great team does something really efficiently, I mean, it goes back to like, I mean, I remember, you know, like the rules about putting your hands on receivers. And like a lot of people felt back then, 20 years ago, like that was because the Patriots basically employed a strategy against the Colts, which was like, we are going to manhandle the receivers and we're going to make sure that they have all kinds of issues getting off the line and we're going to hit them and we're going to, and then, you know, like right as that strategy was starting to take hold is like, oh, this is happening every time they play now. Bill Polian, who was on the competition committee at the time, was part of getting a rule, getting an emphasis put in on contact on receivers at the line of scrimmage. So like I think it sort of feels like that to me at least a little bit, like where it's like, is this just about one team? Yes, it's just about one team.